every single wide receiver for your fantasy football matchups this week. Start or sit. Let's get into it. Let's start with the Minnesota-Pittsburgh game. We got Justin Jefferson in this game. Of course, is going to be in the A tier. He is going to be a start for us this week. The matchup for Justin Jefferson is decent. Pittsburgh's middle of the road in allowing points to fantasy football wide receivers. And so for Jefferson, I mean, you didn't really see a big uptick in production like I thought you would with Justin Jefferson or with Carson Wentz at quarterback last week. He's not cracked 15 points yet. It's 14, 11, and 12 points. He's consistently getting about 7 targets a game, but he's also consistently not really scoring above 15 points. It's a little bit concerning for Jefferson. We will keep him in the A tier because eventually it's the best wide receiver in the league where water's going to find its level with this one. But Jordan Addison comes back this week. So do you start Addison in his first week back? We're going to have Addison in the same tier of guys like Jameson Williams, who was a little bit disappointing last week. Same tiers like Michael Pittman, DJ Moore, Jalen Waddle. So not necessarily like fantastic company. I'm going to move Addison as a meh this week. I'm just not sure. I've said this since I saw this offense at the beginning of the season. I'm just not sure that there's going to be enough volume for Jordan Addison to produce there. That's what I'm mainly worried about. But we will see him. Obviously, he's a better wide receiver 2 than what they have had at wide receiver 2. So when he comes back, we'll see kind of how he fits into that offense. My thing is, similar to how Nathan said about Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter, if Justin Jefferson isn't producing there yet, I don't really expect Jordan Addison to quite yet. They're going to get Justin Jefferson going before they get Jordan Addison going, and they've really yet to get Justin Jefferson going. And so we'll see if they actually do that in week 4. On the Pittsburgh side of the ball, it's a tough matchup because the Vikings have been literally locked down against fantasy football wide receivers this year. And so DK Metcalf, I'm going to put DK as a meh this week as well. Calvin Austin's going to be a sit for us. We've got DK in the F tier with Jordan Addison. And again, just like Jordan Addison, I'm going to go meh. It's a very tough matchup for DK. While he does have touchdown upside every single week, which is what you've seen in the last couple weeks with DK Metcalf, it doesn't mean he's going to score a crazy amount of fantasy points. He's been very consistent so far, 12, 11, and 12 points. And you got to keep in mind these last couple weeks against Seattle and New England, I mean, he scored 11 and 12 points with touchdowns. He doesn't get that touchdown. You're talking about 6 points from DK, and he's not doing any favors for your fantasy football lineup. It's a tough matchup for DK. He's not really getting a ton of target volume there. I'm going to say he's a shakier flex this week. Calvin Austin again in the I tier. He's somebody that I think we're going to want to sit this week again. This is a very, very tough matchup for Aaron Rodgers. Although if I do trust any quarterback to go against the Brian Flores defense, it would probably be an experienced veteran quarterback that's not going to get completely rattled by the different coverages that Brian Flores is going to throw at him. But still, DK's been borderline flexible already. I think it's going to be a tough matchup, so you're going to have to decide whether or not you want to flex him. I am very shaky about it, to be honest.
So the big news out of Washington and Atlanta's matchup is that Terry McLaurin is probably not going to be the wide receiver 1 here this week. He already wasn't, but he's visiting a specialist right now about his quad, and they said that his status was in doubt yesterday being Tuesday. So Deebo Samuel is effectively looking like the top option there with Jaden Daniels coming back healthy, and that makes Deebo a must start. You have to start Deebo. Obviously, the floor is a big question for Deebo, which is why he's going to be in the D tier, but his upside is very huge here, and if he's the only guy there, honestly, that is going to be the top option for Jaden Daniels, who's back healthy, I think he'll be fine. Jalen Lane and Luke McCaffrey will both have ranks in the M tier, literally just because they're being moved up the depth chart if Terry misses time, but they're going to be sits for sure. Drake London, we are still going to start. We have him down in the B tier now, but he does have a great matchup against Washington, who's allowed the 8th most amount of points to wide receivers this year, but does that even matter when they score 0 points against Carolina? I don't know. I mean, Penix really struggled last week. They'll have to make a comeback from here, and they did fire their wide receiver coach. They're trying to make some changes here. They've got Zach Robinson down on the side of the field now.
AKA he's the scapegoat. He's going to get fired soon,
so we'll see what happens there, but we're still going to list Drake London as a start. He's a wide receiver 1 there. Darnell Mooney's going to be a meh because of just the offensive woes of this offense over the last couple of weeks. He is in the G tier. If you have to start him, that's okay. I don't honestly know if I want to start him or Addison this week because Mooney did have 11 targets last week. Mm-hmm. So he had 8 points, 11 targets, but the quality of targets there are just... They're very meh, which is why Darnell Mooney as a start this week is meh. I would only do it unless you absolutely have to.
All right, the New Orleans-Buffalo matchup here. Chris Olave remains a start for us because he continues to get elite target volume. The utilization continues to be high. Even without scoring touchdowns, which I think touchdowns are going to be hard to come by in this offense, 12, 11, and 15 points. He's a guy you can flex every week. It's awesome. He's a high target, high floor flex option. He's in the D's tier for us. Similar to Deebo Samuel. we'll have Ted McMillan in this tier, and so he's going to be a guy that we're starting this week for sure. Start Chris Olave against Buffalo. Rashid Shaheed we're going to have as a sit in this matchup in the H tier. Rashid Shaheed, this is kind of his thing, but just hit or miss so far this year. 9 points in week 1. In week 2, 15, and then 8 points against Seattle in week 3. And so with the Buffalo matchup being a little bit of a tougher matchup, I think you were probably more comfortable just saying, hey, let's not start Rashid Shaheed. I think he's a pretty shaky flex option. On the other side of the ball, we still really haven't figured this out. We saw another weakest sample size for these Bills wide receivers, and Keon Coleman, you saw him come out, have an increased snap share, back up to 75% snap share, which is great for Keon, but then he only had 5 points on 4 targets. And so you're like, okay, what are we doing there? Khalil Shakir, on the other hand, in week 3 against Miami, he only had 4 targets, but he had a touchdown, and so it salvaged his day. He played 70% of snaps. He had 14.5 points against Miami. And again, it was that touchdown that really did get him the majority of those points. So you don't necessarily feel like he's a super safe flex option, even though he is somebody that I think you can flex. Keon Coleman and Khalil Shakir both going to be mez for us right now. I'm not super comfortable starting any of these guys. We don't have any bye weeks this week either, and so you don't have to start them. We won't start them. Josh Palmer in the M tier, we're not starting either. Realistically, in the Buffalo, I keep saying this, but one more week to figure this one out would be nice. If I'm going to trust one of them, to be honest with you, I probably am going to trust Khalil Shakir, the veteran there, and the slot wide receiver is going to get easier targets. But I really would like to see Keon Coleman kind of come back to what he was doing in week 1. We just have yet to see that so far. And these guys are going to be shakier starts for us this week.
So Cleveland and Detroit, Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman, the top 2 wide receivers there in Cleveland's offense. That offense is disgusting. It's abysmal. It's brutal. The only guy that you're comfortable starting in that offense at this point is Quinshon Judkins, ironically. Jeudy had a 5-pointer last week, or 2-pointer off of 5 targets. He did have 8 targets against 2 easier defensive matchups against Cincinnati and Baltimore. Detroit going to be not as challenging as Green Bay, but they're still very, very solid. So I'm not expecting much from Jeudy this week. I think he's pretty risky. I'm going to list him as a meh. And then Cedric Tillman, I trust even less. His volume has gone down 3 targets last week. He did have 5 points. But he did get less target volume consistently. So while they are in the same G tier here, I am going to give the upper hand to Jeudy because schematically he does play the wide receiver 1 role there. If you're going to bet on one, and it really truly is honestly a coin flip, I would go ahead and bet on Jeudy this week if you have to bet on either of them. On the Detroit side of the ball, it's Amon-Ra St. Brown in the S tier. He looks incredible. He looks like the Amon-Ra St. Brown that we've come to know and love for the last 4 years. Jameson Williams in the F tier. He was very disappointing last week after he had a nice showing in like the first quarter, but this is what Jameson Williams does, and this is how they utilize him in this offense. He can go from a 5, 6, 7, 8, even 9 target game to a 3-target game like he did in Baltimore. And if the game script isn't going the way that they want it to in terms of his skill set, they're going to run the crap out of the ball with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, and they'll combine for 55 points instead. This is what you sacrifice when you go invest in a guy like Jameson Williams. He will screw you in some weeks. He will win you some weeks. And in a matchup against Cleveland this week, I would probably bet on him having a slower day when you just saw them shut down Green Bay's offense last week, who, yes, doesn't have the weapons that Detroit does, but that's why I'm going to list Jameson Williams as a meh this week, and that's why he's going to be in the F tier. I would bet on him going off in easier matchups in the future.
All right, the Tennessee-Houston game. We'll start with Calvin Ridley here. We're going to have him in the H tier. We're going to have Alec Iomanner in the I tier. We still are going to give the benefit of the doubt to Calvin Ridley for one more week before we start ranking these guys either in the same tier or we just rank Alec over him. In fact, I mean, has Calvin Ridley even outproduced Alec Iomanner once this season?
No, he has not.
We need to flip these rankings. These guys need to be in the same tier at least. I mean, what have we seen from Calvin Ridley this year? Like that's
target volume. That's it.
Yeah, and he got 8, 6, and 7 targets so far. But
which is great, but he
caught one of the 7 targets last.
This is what we've seen for the last 2 years with Calvin Ridley,
and he's not bringing in his targets.
No, he's not.
Legitimately, he's starting to look kind of bad. Whereas Alec Iomanner has been more consistent. Man, I think we flip these guys. I think we go Alec Iomanner in the H tier, Calvin Ridley in the I tier. Both of them are mez. You don't necessarily
feel good about either of them.
You definitely don't necessarily feel good about either of these guys. The matchup is fine against Houston, but again, I feel better about Alec if I'm going to start one than I do Calvin Ridley right now. He just continues to kind of put it together. I will say with Alec, it's been the touchdowns that have been elevating his production, and he did get a touchdown last week because they were down 20 to the Colts and passing the ball the whole time. And so situationally, I think this will be more of a grinded out rock fight between Tennessee and Houston because both these teams are pretty bad right now, and we run the AFC South at this point because it's our division and they all suck. So it's been a long time since I've been able to say that, and we're still going to lose the AFC South. But both these guys are mez for us this week. And then on the Houston side of the ball, Nico's going to be in the A tier. Had 22 points on 11 targets last week. You love to see that utilization go up. You love to see his points go up. He looks like he can transcend a bad situation in Houston, and that's really what we want to see from Nico Collins. And so he's going to be A tier for us. Christian Kirk, interestingly enough, Christian Kirk comes back in the lineup, and he really does decrease the any hope of Jaden Higgins or Jalen Noel getting on the field. Their participation was way down because of Christian Kirk, who played 67% of snaps, had 8 targets. In this game, it only had 5.5 points. And so if you just continue to see the target volume there for Christian Kirk, he could be somebody in the future that you could potentially start. Right now, he's going to be a sit for us in the I tier. We're not really looking to start anybody else against this matchup. Tennessee has allowed the 5th most amount of points so far this year to wide receivers, but that really just means it's wheels up for Nico. And right now, he's really the only guy in this matchup that we're comfortable being like, yes, definitely start him. He's going to be in the A tier for us.
So Ted McMillan was not seen at practice on Wednesday, so that is a big bit of news for him. We are going to have him in the D tier this week, though, because there's no listed injury right now. We'll see what ends up happening there, but if it's not him, you're probably looking at like Hunter Renfrow and Xavier Legette getting some extra targets there. David Moore is a non-factor. We're not really ranking any of those guys at the moment. They don't get consistent enough target volume. I think ultimately we're not going to be too concerned with this matchup against New England. If Tet has missing a couple of practices this week, we'll just have to keep you updated on Friday. But again, when you're looking at the wide receiver production that New England has allowed this year so far, it's been the 6th most amount of wide receiver fantasy points. So I honestly think Tet could bounce back after a slow week last week where they honestly didn't really even need to utilize him that much because they were dominating all day. He gets really good target volume. Once those touchdowns start flowing, he's going to look real solid. I have literally every single New England Patriots wide receiver listed as a sit. If you want to tell me who's going to produce at a higher level this week, there are guys that we don't even have on this list ranked in the depth chart that outproduce all the other guys any given week. Boutte, Diggs, Douglas, Kyle Williams, et cetera. You tell me who's a wide receiver 1 here. Guess what? It's none of the wide receivers. It's Hunter Henry. So all these guys in the IJ and K tier are sits for the foreseeable future. Diggs has been a massive disappointment this year, which is what I feared. And this is not a friendly matchup for any receiver in this offense, where Carolina, surprisingly enough, has allowed the 30th most or the second least amount of points to wide receivers this year.
The 30th most. That's the way you put that.
Yeah.
The Chargers-Giants game. Let's talk about this. This is so interesting here. So a lot of people are here to watch this
Doesn't that look
segment.
so weird?
It does look so weird, man. This is so odd.
But we got to be honest.
A lot of people are here for this matchup. Look, I mean, I don't think after 3 weeks of good data, this is reactionary. In terms of depth chart, you've got Ladd as the wide receiver 1, Keenan, and then QJ as the wide receivers 2 and 3. However you want to put those guys, that is accurate. But in terms of fantasy football, the must start for us this week is going to be Keenan Allen in the C tier. The must start for us is going to be Quentin Johnston in the D tier. I'm going to say Ladd is a must start still as well. I'm comfortable starting all 3 of these guys. I'll give you the wheels up on Ladd against the New York Giants. This is one of the best matchups these wide receivers can have.
They got greens all across the board.
The problem is, once they get up by 20, how much are they going to throw the ball?
Well, we also now have Omari and Hampton producing now and the running backs producing, which is really scary for the wide receivers. So
it is and it isn't.
Not,
I mean,
not all 3 of them.
Part of the reason Hampton's producing is because he got 7 targets. And so like they're throwing the ball a lot. Regardless, I mean, I'm starting QJ in the Flock League this week. I don't know why you wouldn't start QJ. He's a wide receiver 1 in the season so far. Keenan Allen is a wide receiver 2 in the season so far. And Ladd McConkey has been the least productive out of the 3. It's wheels up for all 3 of these guys. I'm comfortable putting all of them into
one of these guys will bust.
Yeah, well, yeah. So, I mean, we just don't know who it's going to be. It's been Ladd the first 3 weeks, really.
Yeah.
And so, it's with my luck, it's going to be QJ. You can come back to this video and make fun of me because QJ didn't do anything for me in the Flock League. And then New York Giants. Look, Malik Neighbors, he didn't practice. This is Wednesday recording this. Didn't practice. As of Wednesday, and so we'll kind of see. I'm sure we'll know more by the time this video comes out on Friday. But A tier for Malik Neighbors if he does play. If he doesn't play, obviously that's going to be wheels up for Wandale, who's in the G tier. He's a sit for us. I'm going to put him as a meh with a hobbled Malik Neighbors, and we'll see. He becomes a start if Malik Neighbors doesn't play. Obviously, Jackson Dart's first game as an NFL starter. We're going to see how that impacts Malik Neighbors and how it impacts Wandale and what the passing volume overall looks like. You have Cam Scatterbu there, who is kind of becoming a breakout. I think a large percentage of their offense is going to be run through Scatterbu now. But, we kind of have to keep an eye on the injury situation. We do have Darius Slayton in the K tier, but we are not going to say to start him this week. And so, a tough matchup as well. The Chargers secondary has allowed the second the sixth least amount of points against fantasy football wide receivers this year. And so tougher matchup. We're comfortable starting Neighbors only if Neighbors plays. If not, it's going to be wheels up for Wan'Dale. Wan'Dale's a shaky start no matter what, but I think like I said last week, he had a tough matchup, but it was the Chiefs. And what did he do? He didn't really do anything. I think he had one catch last week, maybe two in that matchup. And so, he's not somebody he had one catch, 4 targets, hit 3 points. So you're not somebody you consistently feel good about starting anyway.
So we got Philly and Tampa. A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith both produced at a high level last week against a Rams defense that's been pretty stout. So against Tampa Bay, who's kind of the same level, you're looking at yellow lights across the board for both of these guys. We got A.J. Brown in the B tier, Devonta Smith in the D tier. I would be comfortably starting both of them. Again, this is what you bought into when you invested in these guys. Weak winning performances and a couple of really underwhelming performances. So don't be shocked if one of these guys doesn't do much, but don't be surprised when both of them pop off. And that's why, honestly, at this point, with how consistent they are over the whole body of work over the course of an entire season, we're just going to count on Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown being comfortable starts most weeks. And in this matchup against Tampa Bay, where Tampa Bay has allowed the 8th least amount of points to wide receivers, I still think they're going to be all right when Garrett Wilson had a really nice showing last week. Emeka Egbuka is wheels up for him. Now that Mike Evans is out for a significant amount of time with a hamstring injury, he'll be in the C tier, even though he's banged up. It didn't seem to bug him at all last week, where he had a really nice showing against the Jets. Christopher Godwin is practicing. He just did today. He is going to be in the I tier, though. We're going to be ultra conservative with him. Even if he does come in and play in this game, how much is his snap share really going to look like? Is it going to be a full body of work? I wouldn't bet on that. He's probably going to be on a snap count. They'll see how he looks and then ease him in over the next couple of weeks if they really want to bring him in right now. There's a reason they didn't put him on the PUP list to begin, because they were hoping that maybe he'd be back before week 5. And here we are in week 4. This might be the week that he starts getting some opportunities. Sterling Shepard behind him in the K tier. We're also going to have him as a sit. If Chris Godwin doesn't come and play this week, he's probably going to get some targets and maybe some work, but I don't think you're comfortably starting Sterling Shepard and you're like, oh my gosh, he's going to go off and I'm going to win my week because of him. You're only doing that as a last resort if you absolutely have to.
The Jacksonville-San Francisco game is a very interesting one. This is the Mac Jones revenge game, of course. And Brian Thomas wishes that Mac Jones was the quarterback in San Francisco or in Jacksonville, because literally it looks like Mac Jones made Brian Thomas' season last year. That's what it looks like. And you'll remember he killed it with Mac Jones as quarterback. But with BTJ, we've got him in the C tier here. We've got Ricky in the C tier as well, so I'll just put both these guys in the tier list now. Brian Thomas Jr., look, it's a tough matchup for BTJ too. The 4th least amount of points allowed to fantasy football wide receivers in that San Francisco defense. And so you do have to start him, though. You've just got to. I know. I think the bounce back week is coming. I'm getting less sure about it, but I think it's coming. I would not be surprised if he had 15 points this week. Ricky Pearsall had 18 or 19 points last week, and I think that's probably going to happen again. We're gonna keep an eye on the status of Juwan Jennings here. Let's move to the wide receiver 2s here. Juwan Jennings we have in the G tier. If he plays, when we've seen him play the 1 week with Mac, he had, I think, 18 points in that matchup. He had 10 targets, I think, and so I think he's going to be somebody that you probably do feel comfortable plugging into your flex spot if he does play. The problem is he's day-to-day, and so we're going to have a meh at the time of recording this video. Travis Hunter, I've got him as a meh, but really we have him in the I tier.
I'd be sitting Travis Hunter until he does anything at all.
I kind of agree with that. I just think at any point it's a tough matchup for Hunter as well. So we'll go sit for Travis Hunter, but with our luck, it'll be the week he actually breaks out.
Yeah.
Look, until he performs, you're probably not comfortable, and you probably have better flex options anyways. And so I would lean probably don't start Travis Hunter. If Juwan Jennings plays, I think he's a better flex than Travis Hunter. Again, G and I tier for these guys. And then Parker Washington actually has been flexible, but we just don't feel comfortable enough yet. I mean, he's been getting a lot of volume and some production with BTJ not playing up to his standard. But if BTJ does play up to his standard, then Parker Washington becomes, probably irrelevant at that point. And then Kendrick Bourne in the M tier for San Francisco, also going to be somebody that we're not starting. So not starting these wide receiver 3s in this matchup, but the wide receiver 2s are the interesting ones, I think, in this one. And we'll kind of see how it shakes out for Juwan Jennings and for Travis Hunter in this matchup.
Yeah, big game that we're excited to watch as Colts fans. Vegas expects this to be a pretty high scoring matchup. Pittman in the F tier this week. And what's kind of a neutral matchup against the Rams. Their run defense, honestly, is a little better than their pass defense. You saw that demonstrated last week against Philly. I think Pittman should have a fine day. He doesn't blow your socks off with target volume, but he is very consistent and efficient with the opportunity that he's getting. If he gets a touchdown, he'll probably have like 15 plus. He's not going to have like 30. And if he doesn't get a touchdown, he's probably going to have like 7 or 8 points. So he's kind of more of a high floor play. Josh Downs, the reason we have him as a meh this week, even though he's been disappointing, is because Alec Pierce is in concussion protocol. And when you look at how they've been like utilizing these guys schematically, Pierce is the 2. He gets more snaps on the field, more snap share than Josh Downs has been getting. But now that Pierce is out, Downs is going to get most of that opportunity. I think he'll be on the field more than we've been used to seeing him over the last couple of weeks. So he is going to be in the I tier. He's a very boom bust type of guy, I think, at this point in the way that they kind of run their offense this season. But he might be a nice play depending on how that looks and the status of Alec Pierce. You'll want to follow that. If he comes back and is healthy and is good to go, then we would probably lean not as optimistic with Josh Downs this week. A.D. Mitchell, next man up. Again, he'll be the third guy on the depth chart at wide receiver if Pierce is out, but he'll be in the M tier. You're sitting him for sure. Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, you're starting both of them every single week, no questions asked. It's not like the Colts are really known. It's not like Inarumo has been known for, shutting down these wide receivers in their production. I think Puka and Adams are both going to pop off, and this is going to be a pretty high-scoring, hopefully competitive game, but definitely feeling really, really good about Adams and Puka this week. I think they're both going to have good days. B tier for Adams, S tier for Puka.
I just realized that when I was dying to put Rashad Bateman as somebody to start last week, he had 17 points in that game. I freaking knew it, Nathan. I freaking knew he would do well, and you told me not to. I knew he would do well, but you probably can't start him this week against Kansas City. I mean, realistically,
it's a coin flip.
He's still boomer. He's still boomer bust. So. But I did love the matchup for him against Detroit. With Zay Flowers, I think Zay Flowers is still a start. Look, I mean, people after week 1 were like, "Oh, I thought Zay Flowers didn't have the ceiling." Blah blah blah. And I'm like, "Well,
yes,
we
saw this.
We saw it last year. Like, we know that he can score 20, 25 points. It's the games where he has 3 points because he does that. That's just how he is, and that's what he did. That's what he did last week against Detroit. And so with Flowers, though, you still have to start him. He's a C-tier wide receiver for us. Rashad Bateman, his first 3 weeks, 3, and then 17 points, and it's because he had a touchdown last week in a high-scoring game. I'm going to go sit for Rashad Bateman this week. D-Hop's going to be a sit for us as well. D-Hop's probably not going to be somebody that's startable, but it's C-tier for Zay Flowers, J-tier for Rashad Bateman, and the M-tier for DeAndre Hopkins. Now, on the Kansas City side of the ball, this Baltimore defense has been not super great so far this year, but the problem with the Kansas City receivers is, Hollywood Brown is, I think, hurt, right? He had 6 catches, 4 receptions, 42 yards against the New York Giants. He played 68% of the snaps there, and so he's not injured, actually. He just has been moved down our rankings, and so I tier for him. Tyquan Thornton has been out producing Marquise Brown, which is, I'm done trying to figure out this wide receiver room, to be honest with you. Like 13 on 18 points for Tyquan. He's had touchdowns in both of those weeks, but he had 9 targets last week. And so, I think Tyquan is somebody you're looking at as maybe a, meh flex for this week. So I'm going to go meh for Marquise. I'm going to go meh for Tyquan. And I'm going to go meh for Xavier Worthy. We actually have Xavier Worthy and Tyquan Thornton both in the H tier. If Xavier Worthy does play this week, which I haven't heard if he's leaning towards playing or not, and we probably won't know till later in the week, he's going to be pretty shaky coming off of that. He's got a fully torn labrum, which I've learned that you can play with and through with the right physical therapy and things like that.
Xavier Worthy?
Yeah, that's what I said. What did I say?
No, I was just asking.
Yeah, Xavier Worthy.
Torn labrum. Yeah.
No, the other Chiefs receiver that tore their labrum. Worthy.
I thought it was a dislocated shoulder.
That's he tore. They said he fully tore.
A full tear.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, Xavier Worthy of the Chiefs. So H tier for him and Tyquan. Again, all of these Kansas City wide receivers are going to be mess for us this week. You don't really feel good about any of them, but we are 3 weeks away from Rashee Rice, and that's when you're going to have a Chiefs wide receiver to start every week, and it's going to be glorious, and he's going to get so many targets there. Mahomes misses him so much, man. Trust me.
Yep.
So, again, only wide receiver in this matchup you feel really good about starting is Zay Flowers. A couple mez in this matchup as well in the Baltimore-Kansas City. One of these teams will be 1-3 after this week. It's going to be interesting.
Heck yeah. I got to feel great about Rome for Chicago and the A tier this week. Again, 15 points again last week. He's getting those touchdowns, those red zone opportunities, those targets in the end zone. I just, with that target volume too and how efficient and effective he is with it, like I don't think he's touchdown dependent either. When those touchdowns go away, he'll still be fine. He'll have a high floor. DJ Moore salvaged his day with a touchdown. We'll have him in the F tier as a meh. I don't trust him. I don't trust anyone in that offense at this point outside of Rome Odunze. It was nice to see DJ Moore show like signs of life in what was still a very high scoring game. His target volume has not gone up. 5, 6, and 5 targets. The only reason he was in double digits, not single digits like weeks past, was because of that touchdown. I think from here on out, you're looking at Moore being touchdown or bust, which is why he's kind of a last resort flex option. And then Luther Burden had a 19-pointer last week. When you actually look at his usage there, his snap share did not go up. It was less than 30%. He only had like 1 or 2 targets on the day and 3 targets on the day, and he had 1 big play for a touchdown there, which made him look a lot more productive than I think you're going to see on a regular basis this season. So we're going to list him as a sit. I think he's fool's gold for the foreseeable future. Jacoby Myers is going to be listed as a must start after a slower week last week in the C tier. He's the one that's getting the most consistent amount of target volume in that offense. I do want to show and give some flowers to Trey Tucker, who, I mean, had a heck of a day, like the best day when you're talking about wide receivers in week 3. He had 40 points, so 9 targets, 8 receptions, 145 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Now, if you watch that game against Washington, they were down early, and then they were just slinging it in the second half. Gino was just taking constant shots downfield, and Trey Tucker is kind of that type of guy. So I don't think you're going to see that every single week with him, but it's nice. I mean, he had 8 targets the week before that and only hauled in 3 of those. So again, you're talking probably boom bust outlook for Trey Tucker every single week. It's why he's going to be listed in the H tier. And honestly, kind of a last resort start. I have him as a meh this week just because of what he's done the last couple of weeks. Dante Thornton going to be a sit until he can get more snap share and target volume. He's going to be in the J tier, and not optimistic with anyone beyond that.
Moving to the Micah Parsons revenge game, the Green Bay Packers versus the Dallas Cowboys. It is a good matchup for the Green Bay Packers this week. The Dallas Cowboys have allowed the second most amount of points to fantasy football wide receivers. So maybe this is the week, because what you saw last week, you are seeing it a little bit now. You are seeing it a little bit more. Golden's snap share has gone up. He's above 70%, which for a Packers wide receiver is very good, by the way. And he had 4 targets instead of 2. So it's like, oh, it's twice the targets, right? He did have 4 catches for 52 yards. He also, again, was this close to scoring a long touchdown. I think it's only a matter of time before you see Matthew Golden have a 19, 20-point game because he has a huge touchdown. And the problem is predicting that becomes tough on a week-to-week basis. And it is a great matchup for these receivers. But with Golden, I'm still going to go meh. I'm not comfortable being like, hey, you definitely have to plug him into your lineups and go for it. With Romeo Doubs was the guy I said to sit last week. He had 4.5 points. He had an 89% snap share, so very good snap share for a Packers wide receiver. And, of course, with these Packers wide receivers, they are so hit or miss, you cannot predict them. Romeo Doubs can be a meh this week as well. I lean sit for Romeo Doubs, actually. And so, I probably wouldn't be looking to start him. And Dontavion Wicks is going to be a sit here as well in the I tier. So F tier for Golden, G tier for Romeo Doubs, and I tier for Dontavion Wicks. If you're going to try to start anybody this week, I would start Matthew Golden. I'm sitting him in the Flock League. Again, I've got guys like QJ, Michael Pittman that I'm going to start over Matthew Golden. But you could eventually see that Matthew Golden boom game that we've been waiting for. And on the Dallas side of the ball, a tough matchup because Green Bay's defense has allowed the 3rd least amount of points to wide receivers in fantasy football so far this year. Green Bay's defense is just elite. They're my Flock League defense. I couldn't love them more right now. However, with Pickens, you have to start Pickens. You're going to sit Tolbert, and you've got Pickens in the C tier, Jalen Tolbert in the J tier. Look, Pickens is the wide receiver 1 there, and even though we're not crazy about the matchup, and we're also not crazy about George Pickens being the 1, you have to start him. You have to put him in your lineup with the volume he's going to get. There's no choice but to start him. So Pickens is going to be a start for us in this matchup.
Jets in Miami, this is a gross matchup, but Garrett Wilson is not a gross start, man. I mean, Garrett Wilson just looks incredible. He continues to transcend the situation. He's going to be in the B tier as a must start every single week. Literally no one in that offense is startable beyond him. Well, Breece Hall, obviously, but with wide receivers, Josh Reynolds is the number 2 guy there in the depth chart. He's not even rankable. And then on the flip side, you've got Miami with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. And obviously you have Sauce Gardner to worry about here. So Tyreek Hill we are going to have in the D tier listed as a start. He clearly doesn't have the ceiling that we've seen in years past, but he does have the volume and the opportunity. 6, 7, and 10 targets the last couple of weeks with 16 and 15 targets against New England and Buffalo. And he is more explosive and more efficient with the opportunity that he gets as opposed to Jalen Waddle, which is why Waddle is going to be a couple tiers down in the F tier. And he's going to be more of a meh for us this week. His weeks have been salvaged over in in the matchups against New England and Buffalo with those touchdowns. I mean, only 8 yards per reception against Buffalo in week 3. That's just not going to cut it. And when you've got to turn the ball over as your QB, you can't count on the wide receiver 2 in that offense getting those touchdowns every single week and being super reliable. So in a tougher matchup against the New York Jets this week, I'm probably going to expect a slower week from Waddle, but you can't deny the production that he's had the last couple of weeks, and would have been some tough matchups as well against Buffalo especially. So he always has that upside, always has that opportunity and chance to get double-digit production. But don't be shocked if he's in the single digits this week, which is why we'll list him as a meh.
All right, the Cincinnati-Denver game to wrap us up here. Jamar Chase in the A tier. Got to start Chase. This is a tough matchup against Denver. Pat Surtain has been a little bit hobbled recently. If you've watched him in the games that they've played against the Colts and then the Chargers, he didn't really look like himself. And so there's always the possibility that Chase kind of gets the better of Surtain in this matchup, but it's going to be tough. T. Higgins in the G tier. I mean, Jamar Chase is going to be a start for us this week. T. Higgins is going to be a meh for us. I don't think there's any way around it. T. Higgins, he could be irrelevant. He could be irrelevant in this matchup. And honestly, for the rest of the season, it doesn't look great. Cortland Sutton as well. Sutton is going to be a start for us in the B tier here. Troy Franklin in the H tier. I'm not going to start Troy Franklin. I'm not going to start Marvin Mims. But Aki started Troy Franklin against me in the Flock League last week. Probably shouldn't have done that. He's not a guy after a spike week that you want to start. And so you're going to start the ones in this matchup with Chase and Sutton. T. Higgins is very questionable for me this weekend with a tough matchup and with Jake Browning. Again, this is another tough matchup for Jake Browning at quarterback. But there you go. That's every wide receiver in fantasy football. So make sure, appreciate you guys watching. Drop a like. Make sure you're subscribed. If you'd like to get our rankings, we update these throughout the week as we get new injury news and things like that. I've got a link in the pinned comment that is going to bring you to the site for free. You can get all of our ranks. You can plug your team into My Teams tool. So you can use our free tools over on the site to make sure you are dominating your fantasy football leagues this year. But we appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you here soon.